Dean and Tyler Listle are registered investment advisor representatives. Investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services, LLC, and Secure Retirement Solutions, LLC are not affiliated companies.
It's time for Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. Now, here are your hosts, Dean and Tyler.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. Tyler and I will discuss topics that affect your retirement, such as investments, income planning, Social Security, and much more. Good morning, Tyler. How are you?
Good morning, Dean. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good. Today we're going to talk about habits. Unfortunately, most of the time when you talk about habits, they're bad habits, smoking, drinking, and other bad habits that people might have. But we're going to talk about good habits and how to create good habits when it comes to your finances. And if you get into a situation where you create a habit, you feel cheated if you no longer do that habit going forward. So we're going to talk about good habits. It's going to help you put money aside. It's going to help you prepare for retirement. And it's going to help you look at a couple of things that you probably aren't aware of with your planning when it comes to your finances. So when we talk about habits, the very first thing we're going to talk about is creating a good habit, and that is setting investment goals. Okay? One of the mistakes people make, though, when you set goals for investments is that you look too far out when you want to create your plan. And what happens is if you don't start reaching that plan quickly, human nature kicks in and you just sort of walk away from the plan. But what we're going to talk about is short-term, medium-term, and long-term plans. And then we're going to review a couple things going forward after that when it comes to your goals. Tyler, let's talk a little bit about goals and the short, medium, and long-term goals.
Yeah, Dean, so with us today talking about important financial habits, as you said, usually when you hear the word habit, especially in terms of finances, it's usually people who have spending habits. Now we're going to talk about the opposite today, savings habits, goals, different things like that. And as Dean mentioned, the first one being setting investment goals. So first off, with investment goals, we typically stage it in three forms. You have your short-term goals, so that's usually 1 to 2 years. And a short-term goal could be building up an emergency fund. We're big on that. We want to make sure that you have an emergency fund in case anything should happen. You don't have to pay things with a credit card or go into debt to pay off an emergency if that should happen. Maybe buying a car. That could be, you could save up for 1 or 2 years to buy a car, or even something along the lines of taking a vacation. That is a short-term goal where you can save over 1 to 2 years, save up some money for a family vacation. So you have your short-term goals. Then you also have your medium-term goals, and we usually view medium-term goals as goals that you plan to hit within 3 to 10 years. So something 3 to 10 years down the line could include paying down all debt. Maybe you want to have a goal where you want to have all debt besides your house. So credit card, car, student loans, you might want to have all that paid off within 3 to 10 years. Another thing could be planning for a wedding. So if you're thinking about getting married, or maybe you're engaged right now, 3 to 10 years, that might be a little much, but a wedding could be in there as well. A wedding could also fall in the short term too. Saving for a down payment on a house could be another medium term goal. 3 to 10 years, you want to build up that down payment, as well as saving for a child's college. Maybe your child is 10 years old or so, and you're starting saving for them right now, planning on going to college after high school. That could be a medium term goal, 3 to 10 years. So we have short-term, 1 to 2 years, medium-term goals, 3 to 10 years, and then you also have your long-term goals, which are 10 years or longer. And those usually include two things. Number one is planning for retirement. So planning for retirement, you want to start that as early as you can, and that's going to be a long-term goal where you're investing each and every month to try and build up a nest egg that you can retire on. And then the other long-term goal would also be paying off your mortgage. So some people can do that sooner, but usually 10 or more years you want to plan out and make sure that you have that paid off, ideally before you head into retirement. Now, short-term goals, 1 to 2 years, medium-term, 3 to 10, and again, long-term goals, 10 or more years. But it's very important that you have investments that match up with those goals. And what I mean by that is if you have a short-term goal, If you want to buy a car next year and pay all cash with it, well, you probably don't want to invest in all growth stocks. Instead, you're probably going to want to invest in simply cash, money market fund, maybe even a CD or fixed annuity for a short or medium term goal. Whereas if you had a long-term goal, then you can start investing in things like individual stocks, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, stuff like that that's going to be a little bit more aggressive but offer more growth potential. But again, the last thing that you want to do if you're saving for a plot of land or a house within 2 to 3 years, you probably don't want to put all that money in the market just because then you're subject to risk. And let's say you have $20,000 that you're saving up and you want to put $30,000 down on a house. Well, if you put $20,000 in the market, then 2 years from now, that $20,000 might be $14,000. And that's usually not what you're going to want. That's meant for a longer term time horizon, that type of investment. So again, make sure that you have investments that match up with your goals, your short term, medium term, and long term.
Okay, and as far as setting goals, Tyler, that's a good way of saying you really should have a financial plan. Okay, so if we're setting investment goals for the short term, medium term, and long term, really what we're saying is get a financial plan together. And a financial plan is nothing more than a retirement roadmap. If you have something in writing, chances are you're going to stick with it a lot longer than if you don't have it in writing. We offer a complimentary financial plan for anybody who comes into our office. What it'll do is it'll create those short-term, medium-term, long-term plans. It'll also look at when you should be taking Social Security, how to plan around Medicare, and so on. So, I mean, really, if you're working with a financial advisor, ask him or her to put together a financial plan for you. If they don't do it, like I said, we will create one complimentary for anybody who comes in our office. So, again, setting goals, financial plan, retirement roadmap.
Yeah, Dean, and last thing here that I wanted to point out in terms of setting investment goals, I'm going to reference a study that was done by Merrill Lynch in 2016. They found that the average cost of a wedding is $32,641. The average cost of 4 years of college education right now is over $83,000. The average cost to raise a child is over $245,000. The average cost of a home is over $278,000. Now, again, that depends on where you live. And the average cost to fund a couple's retirement is over $738,000 over a 30 to 40 year time horizon. And again, those numbers are just the average. A lot of people can get away with much lower numbers. Some may need even higher. That all depends on your spending habits and your expenses. But again, some of those numbers right there, that just shows that you need to have a plan to be able to hit those numbers. A wedding, college education, a new home, funding retirement. You have to have a plan to make sure that you get to where you want to be down the road. You can't just put money away blindly and hope that it works. You always want to have kind of a calculated financial plan, as you said, Dean. But ultimately, the first important financial habit is setting investment goals.
Okay, the second one we're going to talk about is managing debt. Okay, again, we're talking about creating habits here, positive financial habits. In managing debt, we can't emphasize that enough. Unfortunately, we're in a society that is a buy society, and most of the time people use credit cards and borrowed money for their acquisitions. Tyler and I are proponents of the Dave Ramsey approach when it comes to debt and establishing financial plans. We're a SmartVestor Pro through Dave Ramsey for the Green Bay and surrounding area. So we really believe in managing debt when you are starting to look towards the retirement process. We have said all along that somebody who comes in and unfortunately didn't put aside a lot of money but has no debt is probably going to be more comfortable in retirement than somebody who has significantly more money to live off of but unfortunately carries a lot of that debt. And of course, I'm sure there might be a medical document out there that claims this, but I think it's better for your health too. We see people that look really, they're in rough shape. They take things personally when they have a lot of debt and they no longer have income coming in. So reducing that debt before you get to retirement is extremely important. And there's two processes for, working on that debt situation. And one of them we tend to believe in a little bit more than the other, but regardless, both of them are going to work. Tyler, what are those two ways?
Yeah, Dean, and before I get into that, we see it all the time in our office where debt is really the number one thing that can derail people's finances. Even at a personal level, it can completely ruin marriages and stuff like that. It's a big deal. And like Dean said, we're big proponents of the Dave Ramsey debt reduction method. But really, if you're starting from the ground up where you have debt and you just don't know where to begin, first thing, try and save up $1,000 as soon as you can into an emergency fund. So that way, if something comes up when you're paying down debt, you don't have to go into more debt. You can tap into your emergency fund to pay off stuff. But save a small emergency fund, get that built up. Then you can tackle all your other debts as soon as possible. And getting into those two ways, there's usually two ways that you can go about paying down debt. The number one method is what we term the debt snowball method. And with that method, what you do is you write down all your debts from smallest balance, start with your smallest balance on top, and then work your way down to the largest. And what you want to do then is make the largest payment you can afford to the lowest balance debt. So that first one that you have written on there, make the largest payment that you can. Try and knock that one down as soon as possible, but yet continue to make the minimum monthly payments on all your other debts as well. And then when that smallest debt is paid off, you want to then repeat the process with the next smallest debt. So you get that smallest one knocked out, okay, good. Then snowball your way right on down to the next one. So for example, let's say you have, you start listing your debts, you have a $1,000 credit card. That's the lowest balance, you want to pay that one off. Maybe a $10,000 car loan, pay that one off next. And then lastly, $25,000 student loans, pay those off next. And what this does, this method here, it tends to give people momentum where when they see that first debt gone, snowballs right on down it has a snowball effect where they pick up momentum and then they're eager to continue paying that debt, pay the next one off, the next one. So that's the first one, snowball method, where you pay the debts from smallest balance down all the way to the largest balance. And then the other one is the highest interest rate method. So that's the one where you list all your debts on paper again from the highest interest rate to the lowest interest rate. And then you make the largest payment that you can on the highest rate debt, but continue to make the minimum monthly payments on all other debts and work your way on down. And when you get that highest interest rate debt paid off, then you go on to the next highest, next highest, and so on. And for a little example, let's say you have $5,000 on a 18% interest credit card. You want to pay that one off first because it's the highest interest rate. Then maybe you have a 7% student loan and a 3% car loan. So it's simply paying off the highest interest rate loan first. This one makes more sense mathematically. You can get debt paid off and you won't collect as much interest over time if you use the highest interest rate method to pay down debt. But we find usually with people who use the snowball method, they stick to it longer because with highest rate debt, you might have a 18% interest rate credit card for $20,000 and it just seems like it takes forever to pay it off. Then you kind of lose interest and you may stray from the plan and just kind of say, forget about it, it's taking too long. So the snowball method tends to give people more momentum and they tend to come through and finish the process better that way. And so really managing debt, debt is the number one thing that can derail people's finances, but it's a good financial habit to manage your debt, get all your debt paid off, especially heading into retirement. But Dean, one little tidbit I wanted to throw out there is that it'll take 24 years to pay off $5,000 credit card debt at 20% interest if you only make the minimum payment each month. So again, $5,000, according to the credit card company, if you make their minimum payment, it's going to be 24 years. So really, that's what credit card companies want. That's how they make money. They make their interest on you. But again, you never want to, by all means, you never want to make only the minimum payment on all your debt. You really want to knock down either the lowest balance debt or the highest interest rate debt as soon as you can and get those paid off quickly.
Okay, good points, Tyler. And when it comes to, again, managing debt, Tyler brought it up, but we tend to believe in the snowball method first. It just seems, again, we're all, human nature is you want to get things accomplished as quickly as possible. When you have 5 or 6 accounts that you might be in debt to, and you can knock them down to 2 or 3 regardless of their size, it makes you feel a lot better and you stick with it longer. And also in regards to 24 years to pay off $5,000 of credit card debt, at 20% interest when you make the minimum payments. I mean, that is stunning when you stop to think about that. And unfortunately, a lot of people do that. What you can do, though, is you can go online, just go to Google and type in, financial calculators, and there are a lot of them out there. And it gives you some guidance. You can put how much you owe on a credit card. You punch in how much your interest rate is and what you plan on paying, and they'll tell you how long it's going to take to pay that off. So by seeing that in front of you on the screen, you're more inclined to increase the amount you're going to be paying towards that credit card. So when it comes to managing debt, it's a great financial habit to get into. So we're going to talk about the next financial habit, but before we do, we're going to take a quick break.
You're listening to Dean and Tyler Listle, investment advisors with Secure Retirement Solutions located on Allied Street in Green Bay. For a complimentary review of your current investments, or if you have questions, please call them at 920-347-9888 or go to their website at srsplans.com.
Okay, we're back and we're going to talk about the next important financial habit. And what we're going to look at is saving 15% of gross income in retirement accounts. And when we refer to retirement accounts, it doesn't just have to be a 401k. A lot of people, when we tell them that we would like to see them put away 15%, right away they say, well, I'm already contributing, to my 401k. Should I just up the amount? Well, first of all, to accumulate wealth the quickest, we tend to think that your employer-sponsored plan is going to be the best thing to increase. That would be a 401k or a 403b. Part of the reason is it's easy to create a habit of just having more money taken out of your payroll. After 2, 3, 4 times that happens, you typically no longer remember that you're taking more out. So again, you're creating a habit there. But 15% out of your gross income for retirement accounts can also replenish cash positions, IRAs, non-qualified investments, stock investments.
If two people are married and heading into retirement when they're both 65. So right there, that tells us that people need to plan for longer retirements by saving more during their working years. So again, people are living longer. The only way that you're going to be able to fund a longer retirement is by saving more when you're working. And according to the Social Security Administration, Social Security only covers about 33% of the average retiree's retirement income needs. So we hear it all the time, and I know we talked about this a little bit on our last show, but people, we hear them say, I'm not going to save too much for retirement now because I'm going to rely on Social Security. Well, when Social Security typically covers only about a third of your retirement income needs, that's just not going to work. The math doesn't add up. So you need to take responsibility and save outside of Social Security. You need to save through your employer-sponsored plan or invest on your own through a different retirement plan. And with that said, what we recommend is if you have a retirement plan through work, a 401k, a 403b, retirement savings plan, whatever it may be, we recommend that you contribute to that first and foremost, especially if they offer a match. So let's say they offer a 5% match. The first place that you want to go is contribute 5% of your income into that plan right up to the match. Now, within a 401k, in 2018, you can contribute all the way up to $18,500. And if you're 50 or older, they allow you an extra $6,000 per year. So that turns out to be $24,500 that you can contribute to your 401k through work. Now, contribute first off up to the match within your 401k. Then once you hit the match, we recommend going outside of your 401k into a Roth IRA. That stands for Roth Individual Retirement Account. That's an account that you create on your own. And the big benefit to that is that it's tax-free. So you put money in after-tax dollars that you're already taxed on from checking or savings, put it into your Roth IRA, then that money can grow tax-free thereafter. And it's very, very important, especially if you're younger, because you have compounding interest and time on your side. You have so much time that can grow tax-free. Now with the Roth IRA, though, you can put in $5,500 per year. And if you're 50 or older, the IRS allows an extra $1,000, totaling $6,500 if you're 50 or older. And again, the big difference here is that none of that money is taxable in the Roth IRA if you withdraw it after 59 and a half years old and it's been there for at least 5 years. So if you can start a Roth IRA early, that's where you want to go. So first, contribute up to the match within your 401k, then go outside to the Roth IRA, and if you can still do more, then go back to your 401k and see if you can max that out eventually and still contribute more to retirement. So that's kind of how we recommend you contribute to your retirement accounts. Now, there's a number of different ways that you can do it. Oftentimes, people get too caught up in the weeds, so to speak. But really, just save. As long as you're saving in retirement accounts, don't make it too complicated, but that is the route that we would go. 401k Roth IRA, then back to the 401k. In addition to that, I just have a few numbers that I want to point out here that I think will give our listeners some value that kind of shows how starting earlier can be so much more beneficial. So if you were to invest $100 per month starting at age 25, and your investment averaged a 6% rate of return per year, you would have saved up over $191,000 by 65 years old. On the other hand, if you invested $133 per month starting at age 35, so here you're starting 10 years later, but you're investing $33 more per month, and you averaged your 6% rate of return per year, you would have saved up over $130,000 by age 65. So you would have saved over $60,000 less. And even more so, if you invested $200 per month starting at age 45, and your investment averaged a 6% rate of return per year, then you would have saved up over $91,000 by age 65. So again, if you start early, it shows right here, if you're starting earlier and even investing less, you're probably going to have more in retirement over the long term simply by starting earlier. So really that shows compounding interest and time. If you combine those two together, you can really build up a nice nest egg. So really, save for retirement. The moral is start early. Again, if you combine that compounding interest with time, that's typically when you're going to see the best results.
Okay, so Tyler talks about starting early, and we do advocate that. I mean, it's very important. However, it's never too late to start. Okay, we have a lot of people who are planning for their retirement. We met with somebody a couple of months ago. Unfortunately, didn't do a very good job putting money aside, and he was a year away from wanting to retire. And we put together a plan for him to try to make his life a little bit better when it comes to income in retirement. And he says, it's too late. So what if I put aside $6,500 this year? That's all I'm going to have. Well, it's $6,500 that you didn't have last year. So, it is never too late. Get started. But again, the moral here is get started early, as Tyler said. You'll see that compounding interest and time on your side is really going to help you out. Okay, now we're going to talk about the next important financial habit. It's one that most people, just don't pay attention to, and that's consider life insurance in your financial plan. A lot of people don't really care for the life insurance in a financial plan. They don't see the reason for it. If they've taken care of their debt and they might be towards retirement, they feel that they're self-insured. They feel that life insurance is boring. But really, with the cost of life insurance, especially term policies, they're the cheapest you can get out there. But they do address a significant need maybe outside of the death benefit. And for some people, we recommend it exclusively for the accelerated death benefits. You've heard me in previous shows talk about this. Accelerated death benefits are very, very, very important for those people looking to plan their retirement and don't have a long-term care insurance policy. Long-term care insurance policies, unfortunately, some people can't afford them. And if you buy a long-term care policy, let's say when you're 60 years old, they're going to be somewhat expensive, and you might carry them until, let's say, your mid-70s, and unfortunately your income comes down, and what do? You let the policies lapse. So you just paid in tens of thousands of dollars over those years. You never used it, and you let it lapse at a time in your life when you most need it. So we have an alternative to that. It does not replace it. We would love to see everybody with long-term care policies, but it just doesn't happen. If you can get a term policy that has accelerated death benefits, what that means is if you get terminally ill, have a critical illness, or need at-home daycare, you meet the criteria that the insurance company puts out there, the death benefit, or a portion of it, typically, 50 to 75% of the death benefit will be paid out while you're alive to take care of you if you're critically ill. Now, that's very important because it allows your spouse to be able to maintain their standard of living without having to go poor by having to pay for your medical expenses. Now, do understand, though, at the point that you would pass away, you would no longer have a death benefit that would go to your spouse, but still you utilize that a portion of that death benefit while you're alive when the expenses were being built up because of your critical care that's needed. Tyler, what else when we're talking about good financial habits where insurance comes into play?
Yeah, good points there, Dean. Really, the only thing I have here is just consider life insurance if the need is there. And what I mean by that, the need would typically be if you have younger children who have not yet graduated from high school or college. If you have an existing mortgage or other debts, you want to have life insurance to provide for your family, for your spouse to cover those. Or if you're in your prime working years and make substantially more than your spouse, you want them to be covered should something happen to you. So consider it if the need is there.
Okay, good points. And what we're going to do is talk about the last one, and that's develop an estate plan. Okay, this is a little bit different than a financial plan. Financial plan that you put together helps you navigate income and debt situations in retirement. But when we talk about an estate plan, this is a complete plan. It's advanced planning. You're also looking at taking care of your heirs once you pass away. So, Tyler, what are some of the basics here we want to see in place for people to create a good habit and use an estate plan?
Yeah, Dean, ultimately, and you just said it, what it comes down to, when we talk about estate planning, it's making sure that your assets go on to your heirs, to your beneficiaries in the way that you want them to go on to them. Really, it's a financial strategy that incorporates various assets, your investments, bank accounts, retirement funds, life insurance, and a will or a trust. Another thing to point out is a durable power of attorney is another estate planning document to consider. And we see it quite a bit. That allows another person the authority to make healthcare decisions, do financial transactions, or sign legal documents that you no longer can on your own, typically when you get elderly and can't perform these functions properly. But ultimately, with an estate plan, a basic will in today's day and age is almost necessary in terms of estate planning. Of course, unless you want the probate court to settle your estate. And I don't know about you, but I don't necessarily want that. But we see it quite often where people come in, they may have substantial assets and they don't even have a basic will. So really with estate planning, at least get a will done so that way you can determine how you want your assets passed on to your family, to your beneficiary, to your heirs down the road.
Okay, that's all the time we have this week. See you later and hope you'll join us again next week.
We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to Secure Retirement Solutions with your hosts, Dean and Tyler Listle, fully licensed retirement specialists from Secure Retirement Solutions in Green Bay. To get more information from Dean and Tyler, contact them at Secure Retirement Solutions on Allied Street in Green Bay. Call 920-347-9888 or visit them at srsplans.com. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Brokers International Financial Services, LLC. Member SIPC. Brokers International Financial Services is not an affiliated company.